Okay.
We look all scholarly, man.
Hey guys, all right, I'm here with John. We're going to talk a little bit about a couple of the questions that you guys have been asking and talking about greatly on my channel and about other channels. The first one is going to be about the UN Arms Treaty that, as one of the other YouTubers, you all know who he is, I'm not going to call him out or anything, has been talking about, he did a video all up in arms about how Hillary and Barack are working under the table to get this UN Arms Treaty signed that's going to destroy our Second Amendment rights. So, John, what are your thoughts on that?
I guess, listen, okay, I am a life member of the NRA, okay? I have a full life membership, paid up, I'll be there forever, NRA certified instructor, okay? So there's my mea culpa, that's where I am on things. I'm, a gun nut from the word go. And I get America's First Freedom from the NRA every month, and they scream about how Obama's going to take our guns away. And frankly, it just sounds like tinfoil hat nut job wackos sitting over in the corner and screaming. And don't get me wrong, listen, I'm a huge proponent of preserving the right to keep and bear arms. And I'm not, I live in a constitutional carry state. Yay, constitutional carry. I'm all about it, I see a guy rolling down the road with an M4 strapped over his back, and I'm not like, oh God, a man with a gun. I go, sweet, dude, what kind of barrel you got in there? But, the bottom line is this is all hype. This is what this is. This is
building mass hysteria.
Yeah, we have so won the war, the cultural tide on firearm ownership. Again, in the 80s, you go back to the 70s, 80s, and man, it was super restrictive. But now, here we are 30 years later, and we've so won the war that we're trying to manufacture reasons to be upset so that we keep our voting base and our action base energized, and that, to me, is ridiculous. If you're actually following it, first of all, they haven't even convened, or they did finally convene the board that's supposed to look at this treaty. And I don't even think it convened until Thursday, this last Thursday. So you see this hysteria, oh, President Obama's going to sign it in 2 weeks. They just convened the group that's supposed to talk about it. When's the last time politicians got together and did anything in 3 weeks?
Government does not move that fast.
Government does not move that fast at all, especially international. It's just patently ridiculous. Second of all, people say, oh, Obama's going to sign things. No, if somebody wanted to sign a treaty, it would be the Secretary of State who would first bring it to the country. And third, by our Constitution, the President and the Secretary of State do not have constitutional authority to agree to treaties. It's the Senate that has to agree to a treaty. And so they can say, well, here it is, but for the United States to accept that treaty, it doesn't have anything to do with the President or the Secretary of State. Go read your Constitution. It has to be ratified by 2/3 of the United States Senate. 67 senators have to sign off on it.
Good luck getting 67 senators to sign off on anything.
On anything, let alone, okay, if you had a really liberal Democratic supermajority, it's potential that you could. But first of all, we don't. Second of all, even in those among those folks who are more liberal-leaning in their politics, you got plenty of blue dogs. You got plenty of gun nuts. Harry Reid is pretty far left, but he's also a gun owner. Mm-hmm. And, so there's no chance. There's not a chance on God's green earth. And I know everybody's freaking out and saying, well, this is backdoor and we don't think it is and we're going to do all that. Guys, the language is what the language is. If they pass something that says, hey, wait a minute, this is for military arms trade or whatever, and really a lot of that they're trying to do is, if you think about it, there's these countries, I've been in the middle of Africa. My wife and I have been in Rwanda, and we see what goes on in those places, Uganda and Kenya and Tanzania and Burundi and those kind of Central African and even the Western African republics in South and Central America, in some parts of Asia, and the illicit arms trade is amazing there. So in some of this respect, they're trying to say, wait a minute, in these rogue states, we want to try to get some international pressure for them to regulate their arms sales a little bit on a military level. We know this. Fast and Furious, to me, shows something. It shows that the Sinaloas and the Zetas and the other, cartels down there, if you look at the armaments they're ain't getting their stuff from the States. They're getting some, semi-automatic AK-74 to do their business. They got a few of those. But they're getting fully automatic weapons. They're getting, crazy stuff. They're not getting them from here. They're getting them shipped from, some former Soviet republic. That's what needs to be regulated. And personally, I don't have a problem with that. So, number one, I don't think that it'd ever get through the Senate. That's what it would have to do to affect America. Number two, there's not a chance that it would happen this summer, this fall. I mean, it's the UN. Third, I don't think President Obama's an idiot. Now, I know I'm going to, here goes, I'm going to give up my Republican card here. I don't think President Obama's a terrible person. I actually think that he honestly believes that what he's doing is the best for America. I think he's a patriot. I don't agree with his brand of patriotism. I don't agree with his policies. I think he's spending my grandchildren's money. But I don't think his desire is to ruin America. I know some people are like, oh, he wants to, end America. I don't buy it. I don't think he does. The guy taught constitutional law.
That leads me to the other question, John, is, a lot of people are talking about, he's laid low for his first term almost entirely about gun rights and Second Amendment rights because he's going to come in and swoop in under his second term. He's going to take away our reloading rights, or he's going to take away our gun rights altogether, or something like that. And you had a great position when we talked about this last week. And what did you have to say about that?
Well, okay, it's possible. You never know. That's like, shoot, how many times have we had a Supreme Court justice who gets appointed and then come to find out once they're in a place where nobody's got to hold them accountable anymore, they change their tune on things. But in my opinion, if President Obama wanted to enact national gun laws, if he wanted to tighten gun laws, he had an absolute, rock-solid, absolute chance when Gabby Giffords was shot. When Congressman Giffords was shot here in Tucson, he had, a home run. If he had said, wanted to say, hey, we need a national, ban on high-capacity magazines, or, high-cap clips, whatever you want to say with that. Okay, we know they're magazines, but whatever. He could have done that, and he would have had the capital to do it. All it takes is pictures of Gabby Giffords, and it would have happened. And he said, when it happened, when the whole thing went down, he said, well, not the time. We'll talk about that later. Maybe there's some discussion on that, but right now we just want to take care of Gabby and the victims. And then he let it die. He didn't do anything with it. So wait a minute. If he had wanted more gun control, he had the perfect chance. And he decided to sit on it. Now you say, well, wait a minute. That's, just for his first term in office. Guys, think about it. He has less control over the legislative branch than he ever has. He does not have a Republican or a democratically controlled House. He's got, in this next election, I would say 50-50 he'll have a Republican-controlled Senate. Boy, it's tight because of the economy. And so I just don't see it. I don't see it as something he could do. He doesn't have the political capital. And I think he's also a fairly smart guy. He recognizes that, when Bill Clinton enacted the assault weapon ban in 93, it cost him his midterm elections in 94, and he never had the same level of ability to do things. And don't get me wrong, I'm no fan of President Clinton's policies, but that one terrible piece of legislation cost him all kinds of things that I know he wanted to do as a president, or at least it seems he wanted to do. So if President Obama had wanted to enact some significant tightening of gun restrictions, he had the perfect opportunity. He chose to let it pass. And so why, here's the crazy part. You want to know the crazy part?
Yeah.
If I look at the last 12 years, 15 years, okay, I would say that there are less restrictions or less things going on in firearm ownership under President Obama than there was under President Bush. Now, that sounds crazy to my right-wing friends, of which I stand over there with them. But, goodness, we now have 4 states that have constitutional carry. We have, most states in the union where you can carry. There's only 1 state left in the union where it's impossible to carry a concealed firearm.
Lots that it's real difficult, like Jersey and
California.
California.
But, still, it's possible. They've loosened. The culture around guns has gotten better. Could you imagine, even 5 years ago or 10 years ago, good grief, there being shows on primetime television about firearms ownerships? And now we've got multiple shows about gun shops and people building custom stuff. And, we're going to build this fully automatic. Woo! And everybody's like, yeah, it's cool, let's blow something up,
And Sons of Guns and American Guns and Top Shot are some of the higher rated shows on cable.
Mythbusters, they're shooting guns left, right, and upside down. And portraying them positively. I don't think 10 years ago that would have happened. So, don't get me wrong. I'm not the one to just say, oh, he's a champion of gun rights or whatever. But to me, it's not the end of the world. And, I think that D.C. versus Heller, Chicago versus, McDonald versus City of Chicago, has established that the Second Amendment is an individual right to keep and bear arms, and has finally settled the issue once and for all. I don't think we're going to see national carry reciprocity in the next couple of years, but mark my words, I bet you it'll be inside 10.
That'd be nice if it was inside 10. I along with a lot of people, thought, oh boy, here comes a corrupt politician from Illinois. And I'm a card-carrying Republican, as everybody knows. And, with this election coming up, don't get me wrong, it's extremely important to vote. And as I've mentioned in the last couple of videos, get your NRA membership. It's the engine that drives this train. But we're going into an election where it's, the better of two evils. Which one are we gonna vote in or keep in office? And Obama has not done nearly the harm for gun rights as prior Democratic presidents have done.
Yeah, I think that's true. And again, I'm not a one-trick pony when it comes to my voting ethic. There's a lot of issues that I vote together. You got to look at a candidate as a whole. And I think a lot of America is looking right now and going, man, I don't like either one. What am I going to do with this issue? Well, got to have to pick one. But I served in the military for 8 years, I served in the Navy. I served in Bill Clinton's Navy, as well as George Bush's Navy. I served from 95 to 02, and 02. And so, I'm interested in how does the president treat the military? How does the president look at our national defense? How do they treat our economy? How do they, what's their domestic policy? What's their vision of government? To me, the bigger issue, frankly, in this election cycle is I have a feeling that we're going to see two justices of the Supreme Court retire in the next 4 years. And so that's why I think it's important, personally. I don't think it's a gun rights thing. I think it's important, though, because I wouldn't be at all surprised if Ginsburg retired in this next cycle. Kennedy could very well retire, and Breyer could very well retire. Now, you think about that. That's two of the most liberal jurists on the bench and a swing vote. And so, if we have a more liberal-leaning president who appoints liberals in those positions, the court pretty much stays the way it is. If we have a more conservative president who appoints more conservative jurists, then we could have a Supreme Court for the next 20, 25 years that is fundamentally conservative in nature.
That'd be wonderful to see. Lastly, before I cut this video off, a lot of people were talking about the health bill last week online, talking about how could Justice Roberts sign when all the way up until the time of the vote, he was voting with the conservatives, and then all of a sudden he flipped to vote with the liberals. You put it better than I've ever heard it put. What did you say about Justice Roberts voting the way he did?
Well, okay.
This is not gun rights, but this is important to people.
Yeah, okay. And again, mea culpa, not a constitutional scholar. I'm not a Supreme Court guy. I just kind of look. Because, of course, when you see John Roberts voting with Kagan and Sotomayor and Ginsburg and Breyer, and you go, are we in Bizarro world? Like, what happened? What the heck went down here? Like, huh?
They're like, we've never seen you vote before.
Did somebody body snatch him? Is he being controlled? Like somebody, put the Imperious curse on him or something? A Jedi mind trick? And then you think about it a little bit more. And I think it again. I don't know why Justice Roberts did what he did. You'd have to ask him. But when you read the opinion, and these are the things that I like to do, yeah, I'm a nerd, leave me alone, is read the whys. And everybody's talked about how he said, no, under the Commerce Clause it's completely unconstitutional, but under the power to tax, it could be construed as constitutional because Congress has the power to tax. I think this is what, personally, Justice Roberts did. I don't even know that it's what he did, but I'm curious. I'm just curious. John Roberts is no dummy. And President Obama has been vocal about his disdain and his dislike of the Supreme Court recently. He has been, made several snide comments about the court. So, I think first of all, Roberts has shut that up. There's no way that Obama can squawk about the Supreme Court anymore. Or if he does, he sounds awfully hypocritical. Mm-hmm. Secondly, I think he's just handed him a political football. Because the president has said, when he argued for this health care act, it's not a tax, it's not a tax, it's not a tax, it's not a tax, it's not a tax. And so Roberts said, well, the only way it could be constitutional is if it is a tax. So we'll leave it because it could be a tax. And if it's a tax, then it's legal. If it's not a tax, it's not. So now you go back to the president, and you say, well, Mr. President, are you happy with that Supreme Court decision? Because he either has to say, yes, by all means, I'm excited about it. Yay, Obamacare. In which case they go, oh, so you're excited that it's a tax, which he hasn't. Or he has to say, well, I am glad it passed, but he's wrong. Except for now the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court has told you the only way that it's constitutional is if it is a tax, that you've argued against it. Or he says, no, I'm not happy with the Supreme Court decision because of the way it was handed down, so you don't like the fact that this is constitutional. So which way does the president get to go? He gets to take what should have been, or what he expected to be a victory, and turned it really into a defeat. Secondly, I think what he might have done is given Mitt Romney a huge campaign plan. Repeal
Absolutely.
Obamacare. Now, all the states, you're seeing Florida has said they'll opt out. Texas has said they'll opt out. Hello, Arizona, Jan Brewer, do you think she'll do anything to give President Obama the time of day? Arizona's going to opt out. There's going to be dozens of states. So now we don't have universal health care anyways. We have a universal health care. Ridiculous. And the Supreme Court decision said that the government has no ability to affect other funding as a result of not participating in this program, that's coercion. So he took away any power that the bill had. So he gutted the power of the bill, and he gave a major political plank to a conservative. Now, why would he do that? Now, I know the Supreme Court is apolitical, right? They don't run as politicians. They're not accountable as that, for good or for ill. But he knows that there's 2 jurists up probably for replacement in the next 4 years, if not 3. John Roberts is, I think, 57 years old right now, I think. He could have 20 years as the Chief Justice, 25 years even maybe, as the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. And imagine settling in to have a 7-2 conservative majority for the next 25 years.
And like he started out the conversation, Roberts is not a dumb guy. He probably sat in his office thinking, if I go with Obama on this thing, I could control the court the way I want the court to be.
Well, and I'm not saying he's doing that, okay? Right. I honestly think John Roberts is a constitutional scholar first. I think he wants to do the best he can. I think that he honestly changed his mind. That it looks like when you read the dissents and you read the concurrences, that they weren't expecting him to vote with him. But he might have changed his mind, and at the end said, well, I suppose that it's possible it could be. But I think that the outpouring, the results of that are far-reaching, or they could be. And please don't hear me. I am not saying that what Chief Justice Roberts did is politically driven. I think that's disrespectful to him because he hasn't said that. But I think there's a lot of implications there and what ifs. And again, he gutted what it was, gave him an absolute Pyrrhic victory. If you remember that, right, the king at Pyrrhus, he says, if I win any more battles like this against the Romans, I'll be ruined. And he just, I think it was potentially a bit of political absolute genius because he could get out of it what he really wants. And it turned imagine if he had voted the other way. Imagine if he had said, no, it's unconstitutional. Now, what does that do? Well, first of all, okay, fine. It sends President Obama back to the drawing board. But then he can say, oh, America, look, it's the courts. The courts did this. Look at these nasty these nasty Republicans who hate America, and they hate the average people, and they hate the middle class. And America, we got to get them out of here. And so give me 4 more years, America. This isn't my fault.
He would have given Obama just the campaign that he needed for the next couple of months.
Maybe 5 percentage points. But instead, he's turned it into a political liability. And now all the states are turning against it.
Yeah.
And I just think it might have been a bit of genius. So,
I agree.
I could be wrong, but these are the way that things tend to work. So I'm not too worried about the UN arms treaty. I don't think it'll affect America, number one. Number two, if there's any whiff of that, there's no way it'll make it through the Senate.
So all you guys worried about this UN treaty, don't worry about it so much. It's not going to, like you just heard John talking about it, it's not going to really affect us at all. Keep
an eye on it.
Yeah.
I mean, you never know. Politicians do dirty tricks and they do dirty things, so you got to keep an eye on it. But I look at it and I go, I don't really look at that as interfering too much. And Don't get me wrong. I mean, hey, I'd love it if every family in America had a firearm for home defense and knew how to use it, knew how to keep it safe. That would be a big deal.
Speaking of which, John and I are going to be organizing a class for all you Phoenicians and all you Valley residents.
Probably a couple.
As you know, that we're both NRA instructors, so we're going to be organizing some classes this fall. Leave me a private message or a message in the comments if you want to take advantage of that. Several people have. And a class taught by John and I is a really fun class. We make it a really good time.
If you don't mind a plug, Dave, real quick,
Go
too.
ahead.
If you want some more discussion, I love to do that. My self-defense company is called Active Self-Protection. You can find us on Facebook if you want. I don't maintain a YouTube channel. But just facebook.com/active self-protection if you want to kind of get in the discussion there.
That link will be below the description, as well as a lot of people. The reason I'm doing this video today is a lot of people talk about John, want to hear from John. We might do a Tuesday morning coffee talk type table talk. So if you have anything that you want to talk about next week, leave it in the comments or send me a private message.
Sure, might be fun.
Thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you guys next time. Stay safe and train. Bye-bye.